Hey, everybody, great Monday to you. Although I have to admit, for me, the day seemed to blur, but this is Monday. It is Monday, 10:07 a.m. in Oakland, 1:07 p.m. in Atlanta, and I am here to talk with you and present to you the definitive reason why Oakland has not and quite apparently will not retain its pro sports teams. So, with that, I wrote this prepared text. I've really thought about this for a long time. And as you know, I've had others talking about this with me, like my former boss, Oakland Mayor L.U. Harris, Andy Dolich, executive with the A's, the Warriors, and the 49ers, as well as the Memphis Grizzlies. I've had on even Pat Gallagher, Giants Enterprises, to talk about it. We had on local broadcast journalists like Casey Pratt. And actually saying but he's the only person so far from that area of life in career. So far. But I always intended to do one solo because Andy Dolich has a book out with Dave Newhouse, and they didn't call me to ask for my opinion or my view from my 37 years of experience being either an intern, a consultant, a mayor's aide, or a Super Bowl bid host and nonprofit head, all for the City of Oakland from those perspectives, why Oakland doesn't retain its sports teams. So whatever their reasons were, I decided, you know what? I'm going to give mine because their perspective doesn't include a single government official who worked for the City of Oakland. So how can you write something and not include anybody that represents the City of Oakland? At any rate, here goes. Why Oakland is behind with Howard Terminal Ballpark. Okay, here's the totally, completely unvarnished, hard, difficult truth why the City of Oakland is so far behind where it should be in helping the Oakland Athletics build a ballpark at Howard Terminal. The simple set of reasons I'm about to roll out can be summed up in one word: over-politicization. That's right, over-politicization. The fact is, the structure of Oakland's bureaucratic slowness was formed with the passage of Measure X in 1998. Then Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown's version of a long sought after form of government in Oakland called Strong Mayor. Passed in 1998, it took effect in 1999, and matched Brown with a person who was every bit his match on the city administrative side, then City Manager Robert Bobb. Bobb, who was trained in the traditional fashion of city managers to, run a city, including its public-private partnerships, and who wanted Oakland to, quote, host Super Bowls and build ballparks, as he said in an early February 1999 city staff meeting I attended as the new city consultant who was economic advisor to the previous Mayor L.U. Harris, to plan for Oakland's then annual trip to Las Vegas for the International Council of Shopping Centers spring convention. As it turned out, Bobb's dreams for Oakland clashed headlong with Robert Bobb's pursuit of a downtown ballpark for the Oakland A's in 2002. And after Robert Bobb hired me to form a bid for Oakland to host the 2005 Super Bowl. Something Jerry initially bristled at, but once we got press, he was in love with it. Brown eventually fired Bobb, who was then almost immediately snatched up by Washington, D.C., and successfully brought Major League Baseball there, along with a downtown ballpark. In short, Oakland's version of Strong Mayor pushed out many a trained city builder and left in its place an organizational habit of elected officials using big projects to burnish their own images and accomplish nothing in return by completing those big projects. The Oakland A's quest for a ballpark home has been victimized by it. Indeed, Oakland's version of strong mayor is why Oakland has lost all of its professional sports teams and has done nothing to try and replace them. I should remark, almost all. But in the case of the now late Ron Dellums, the great congressman had the sad habit of playing ballpark advocates against each other, with one wanting a building at the Coliseum and the other at Howard Terminal, and both coming up short. Rather than one giant task force to determine what should be done, and one that should have been led by Oakland's Economic Development Department and a person who was trained at implementing large-scale projects, Dellums allowed many task forces to form, even one by the Oakland Chamber of Commerce, whose job is to help the city of Oakland and not lead it in a direction of its own making. But to be sure, the person whose face was on the entire affair was Oakland Mayor Ron Dellums and no one else. Oakland Councilmember Larry Reed of District 7 worked to try and carve out a larger role for himself. But again, it was an example of an elected official's hand being in the pot and not a city building city official. Then came Oakland Mayor Gene Kwan in 2010. Unlike Brown and Dellums, Mayor Kwan smartly put Oakland Economic Development Director Fred Blackwell in charge of projects, including a new arena for the Warriors, a new stadium for the Raiders, and a new arena for the, and a new arena, or a new ballpark, I'm sorry, for the Athletics. Unfortunately, Mayor Kwan and the Oakland City Council's insistence on having themselves as the face of the efforts led to bungled lease negotiations with the A's in Alameda County, and the embarrassing idea that the financing fortunes of the planned Coliseum City were in the hands of the Prince of Dubai, rather than a complex financing plan typical of such large-scale public-private partnerships. Then came Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf. While Mayor Schaaf lost the services of Fred Blackwell, who was chased away by the forecast that his previous boss, Kwan, was going to lose re-election, and jumped over to San Francisco to run the San Francisco Foundation, Libby did have me to call on, and did so privately when she wanted to understand how to work with Raiders owner Mark Davis. But during that call, I also encouraged her to form a task force and put Robert Bobb in charge of it, an idea that Libby strangely bristled at. Like her mentor and political supporter Jerry Brown, Libby clearly wanted to make herself, and not a crackerjack city builder, the face of retaining sports in Oakland. In an effort to get Libby off the idea of not having a specialist, in 2015, I tried to get her to talk to Piper Jaffray's sports investment banking legend, managing director Diane Poway, and my legendary UC Berkeley classmate and friend Kofi Bonner, who's known for building much of Emeryville. Before that, I proved to Mayor Schaaf that the Oakland Raiders, working behind her back and financing and planning a stadium in Southern California. I even formed a spreadsheet-based plan to finance a new Raiders stadium using an innovative hotel-based revenue stream that worked to get Mr. Davis the $400 million he said he needed for a stadium at the Coliseum, and got the backing of Oakland City Council member Rebecca Kaplan and then Coliseum boss Scott McKibben, as well as a 6-person deal team at Piper Jaffray. With all of that, Libby, perhaps starry-eyed by the players she was dealing with in NFL owners like Jed York, 49ers owner, whom she struck up a friendship with, was content to go it alone. It was that approach, and no task force of Oakland business and political leaders and city staff and consultants that she took to her NFL meetings. It worked in New York for her first presentation in November 2015 at NFL headquarters, but fell flat in the second one at the 2016 NFL meeting in Boca Raton. There, Libby's lack of knowledge of stadium financing was obvious, and she and Oakland's effort took a giant nosedive. But Libby never stopped playing Zorro, And when she elected to put a point person in charge of the Raiders' effort, selected her city administrator, Claudia Capio, who, one NFL representative commented to me, was, quote, nice, but clearly needed to be brought up to speed on a number of things, unquote. Claudia was consistently puzzled by her role, and that led to NFL legend and would-be Raiders stadium developer Ronnie Lott waiting for her to complete a stadium spreadsheet she was weeks late getting to him. Claudia admitted to me personally she needed help. I offered to help her, but Claudia never followed up with me. Eventually, the Oakland Raiders got NFL approval to move to Las Vegas, but I believed Libby was going to throw a Hail Mary, fly to Phoenix, bust open the doors, and offer Mark Davis and the NFL ownership a last-second deal. Now, I believe that because Libby called me that weekend and put me on watch for a letter she wanted me to help give out at the NFL meeting in Phoenix. I waited for a call, which came at 6 a.m. in the morning, that morning of the meeting in Phoenix. And then it was clear there would be no Libby on a horse, let alone a plane, no special deal, just a reciting of the shovel-ready Raiders stadium plan the NFL already rejected. The Raiders were approved to go to Sin City. Did Libby have a task force of business leaders and city staff and consultants to review what went wrong? No. Was there any public introspection on her part? No. And it should come as no surprise that Mayor Schaaf basically unfolded the same playbook and applied it to Howard Terminal? No, because that's what she did, folks, but with a difference. It involved an engaged civic player in the Oakland Athletics, led by Dave Cobble, its president. But because Libby was content to make herself the face of the A's Ballpark project, and then once again tab people to help her more for reasons of putting on a political face than any real know-how, and once again ignore forming a task force of business leaders and city staff and consultants to get on the matter of building a ballpark either at Howard Terminal or the Coliseum. Libby let the A's direct her, gave the organization indirect control over a significant part of Oakland's waterfront, yet had no city staffers familiar with the kind of tax increment financing plans that I did for 37 years. Libby even admitted this to me on camera during a press conference in 2021, and she has repeated that fact. So it is no surprise that Howard Terminal's pre-development process has been piecemeal, with City of Oakland representatives attending community meetings, no task force, and no formation of a, quote, Howard Terminal Public Authority, unquote, to formalize each step of the process toward groundbreaking, give a publicly known database of meetings, reports, and updates and plans, and get Alameda County backing for the use of tax increment financing. So it is no surprise that the city's timeline for Howard Terminal is not that, but it's really a mess of press releases attacking this or that political criticism. And so it's no surprise that on March 31st, 2021, Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred announced that the A's were going to look at Las Vegas as an alternative. And it is not a surprise that the A's are on parallel paths, even as the same Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred said last year that now Las Vegas was the focus of a future home for the A's and that they were, quote, done talking about Oakland, unquote. Oakland's strong mayor system has created this problem of over-politicization, and Howard Terminal Ballpark is the latest casualty of it. And the problem persists and exists with our newest mayor, Shang Tao. And Shang Tao has basically taken the Libby Schaaf, Jerry Brown playbook and used it for her own purposes, making herself the face of Howard Terminal. And so the song continues. Now, I'll address your comments. Hey, Corey, long time at no see. How are you doing? It says, get him good mornings and good morning, Ed. And then Ed asks, why did the city put the Coliseum to the stadium project on the ballot? Or why didn't the city let the put on the ballot and let the people decide? Alameda and Contra Costa counties. Because that, and I'm taking a very cold perspective on this, was not the public's role. It was an indication that the project had gone so far down the pipe of planning that it was now fully in the public's eye and could be swayed this way or that. And that's precisely what has happened. So what was it going to do? I mean, seriously, what was that going to do? Is it fair to any other public project? Why does the A's project, which really, if you think about it, was actually going to use tax increment financing monies from a very tiny 55-acre patch of land, why does that have to be decided by an entire city? It's just a development project. I'm being very cold about this. It is just a development project, and that goes along with the kind of over-politicization I've said has chased many an organization out of here. It was absolutely ridiculous because you had people designing the questions regarding that ballot measure, or that would ostensibly lead up to it, who didn't even know enough about the project itself to ask the right questions. I repeat, they did not know enough to ask the right questions, and these elected officials wouldn't even know it. I mean, wouldn't even admit it. But it's an example of how far down the pike we've gone. And if you think about it as a bobsled, you'll careen off the rails like we're actually going to go in an accident any second. That's what it looks like. So that didn't need to happen at all. What should have happened, thank you for the 10 bomb, Dave. What should have happened was that when Governor Newsom signed SB 293 Skinner into law, immediately right then, the city should have had a project manager that then established the Howard Terminal Public Financing Authority, all in accordance with enhanced infrastructure financing district legislation, and set about the task of forming a consultant team and a city staff team to write the infrastructure financing plan, meeting with the county, and then educating the public regarding how tax increment financing monies be dispersed, because the monies from that little 55-acre plot of land, because the legislation was such that they can have a community-wide impact. Projects in North Oakland, Oakland Hills, East Oakland, Chinatown, downtown, Adams Point, all over could be financed from Howard Terminal. But because the city didn't do it right, no one knew that. And no one bothered to read the dang on legislation. I don't know if they were too lazy, too high, too drunk, or whatever the case, but whatever the combination reasons were, they didn't read the legislation. And they certainly didn't bother to make it public. And I say this for a fact because on the 20th of November of 2019, I attended the town hall of our then city council president, Nikki Fortunato Bass. And I wanted to give a little presentation regarding what tax increment financing was and how much that the audience could expect from its use at the Howard and Tower terminal parlance and how it could possibly help Chinatown. They said no. And it wasn't anything I wanted to get paid for. I just said, hey, I just want to give a presentation because there wasn't anybody in the room other than me that had that kind of expertise. The city didn't want me to. Carl Chan said no of the Chinatown Chamber. So we had the blind leading the blind. They didn't want the public to know about tax increment financing for reasons not clearly and logically ever stated to me. In fact, Veronica Cummings, who's one of the people who asked me not to do so, said, Zinni, we should have lunch over this sometime. And as much as I would have loved to have lunch with her, she didn't follow up. I can't imagine what logic she or anybody else could present for not telling the public the truth regarding tax increment financing and how it works and how it's supposed to work in the SB 293 Skinner parlance. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right. So, and then Dave Compton says, good morning, Zinni. It sounds really like the city of Oakland's future is headed towards being a no pro sports city after all these years. How sad. It is. It's extremely sad. And not just a no pro sports city. Think about this. Let's take sports away from the equation for a second. Oakland does not have its own theater groups that perform at the Paramount or the Fox. The Fox, we have, certainly concerts. What about great stage plays? I was on the board of the Oakland Civic Theater, a little small civic theater. Our performances were at the Lakeside Park Garden Center. We raised money. That was the last of its kind in Oakland. And even then, we had no comparable effort like that downtown. So there's a lot of haves a normal city is supposed to maintain within its environs that we just don't have and we never tried to establish. The Oakland Symphony deserves an upgraded new home. It deserves better marketing than it has received. We need an effort toward building a cultural infrastructure, which includes pro sports and everything else. It includes room, for example, for soccer. There shouldn't be any kind of division between the Oakland Roots and what they want and what AASCG. Indeed, Oakland Roots can play at the Coliseum. All the Coliseum has to do, and this is outside AASCG's purview for the moment, is say, hey, you know what? We can actually find or develop a plan like we used to do for baseball. We still do for baseball and football. Apply that to soccer and help you have your contests there. And bring the old bleacher system we used to use for the Raiders, and upgrade that, bring everything closer and make it more intimate, at least try. What Oakland Roots came up with and Lena Tan, their representative, developed is not workable outside that site at that position. It is not environmentally workable. Why? Water runoff, drainage, and traffic and impacts. That thing is screaming for an EIR, and I'm shocked the JPA actually let them get by without even thinking about that sort of thing. Okay? So it says, well, I would have just hired you. I would have told you. Yeah, I would have done it. And I know people don't like saying this, but I don't care. The most effective person is a person who can look you right in the eye and say, I can do the job. Because every time I've been put in charge of something with respect to the city of Oakland, I have succeeded. I came within 8 NFL votes of bringing the Super Bowl to Oakland that people said that I couldn't even get close to touching. Would never happen. Scared the heck out of everybody. Even Jane Bruner, who was then the District 1 council member, told me they were taking bets against me. They lost. And then they proceeded to treat me like crap in the face of the NFL, which is why, to this day, among other things that I've built since then, we're still credentialed to cover the draft. As Jim Steek said then, who is Mr. Super Bowl, the NFL's executive vice president, senior vice president for events, said that you at least showed Oakland what it means to go after a large-scale project. And he's right. We got worldwide notice. On a level we'd never seen before. What was the thanks I got? Well, hey, Bill Claggett parked $80,000 along with Mr. Bobb into the sports commission that I created from scratch. That they said it was going to take me 2 years to get fellow approval. I did it in 4 months. And then Jerry Brown got upset that I accused him essentially of being, hey, a person not comfortable with black folks who talk like I do, as opposed to the, hey, what's up types, and fired me. But that's exactly what he did. And it was illegal. And they let him do it. Rather than saying, hey, you know what? You shouldn't do this to Zenny. Because he shared a private discomfort. You should talk with him, get to know him better, because he's really been an asset for the city of Oakland. All right. So it says, I heard, bad look. Nobody should have underestimated you, sir. Hey, they did. So anyway, there it is, folks. And share this with Andy Dolich. Share this with Dave Newhouse, because they're mentioned. And because I've had Andy on a bunch of times, giving him great exposure, you would think the least he could do is say, you know what? Zenny's been part of this equation. But the reason I started my own media company is because my story was consistently being pushed under by white-owned media. So I'm disappointed Andy is part of that. Or at least turns out that he is, okay? Because regular viewers of my programs like Mr. Compton know how often I've had Andy Dolich on. You know that. Dave Combs says, no joke, I feel that you're just too smart for them business-wise. But the thing about it is everybody's smart in some kind of way. And it should never be that. A person shouldn't be so uncomfortable with a black person because they're smart that they act like that. That is an expression of racism. Pure, straight out. It's also an expression that you really don't want the best and the brightest doing anything. And I am the best and the brightest at what I've chosen to do. And now it's run servers. Gotten better at that. Oh, anyway, okay. It's 1:34 p.m. Any other comments you have, if you want me to come back and answer some more questions, say so in the comment section video that goes with this, and I will set a live stream specifically to address all of your questions about Oakland politics, and professional sports. Subscribe to Zenny62. Thank you all very much. Oh, from the bottom of my heart. And bookmark OaklandNewsNowBlog.com and Zenny62.com. Folks are intimidated. They shouldn't be. In fact, you know what? I love people who are smart at what they do. I love people who express their ideas confidently. All right? Those are the only kind of people I want around me, frankly speaking. The only kind. They're fun. All right. I'll see you later.